Hey everybody, I hope you've had a good Monday. Welcome back to the Paranormal Monkey podcast. Hey, Merry Christmas, gotta say. Hence the lights. Hence the lights. Right, now, where do we start? Karin, hey. So, see, sometimes when I do this podcast, I think I'm gonna be struggling to fill an hour here. I'm gonna find this hard going. But honestly, I've rested easy today because bless her, Karin. For those that don't know, Karin has been a paranormal investigator for many years, very much linked with the Jamaica Inn in Cornwall. And we're going to talk to her about that, her work with heritage locations and Visit Somerset, and all plus a certain documentary that she's been in as well, and a certain society that she helped found. So we'll bring her in because she's going to fill the hour. Let's put it that way. Hey, hey, Karin, you all right?
Hello. You know me well.
Sorry, taking the mic. Apologies. If you're listening to in the background, kind of like, how are you? All right?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes.
Oh, be nice and meek and mild at the beginning. It's all right.
Yes. I'm good to fool everyone.
Quiet start. We'll get going. Now then, before we start, because we've got loads of, I'm sure we have got loads to talk about, right? However, genuinely really interesting. I don't know this. You know, and I ask this for everybody when I first start: is what got you into the paranormal, and how you know, where does your interest lie? Where did it come from? How did it start for you?
Well, as a child, I used to read ghost stories under the covers with a torch, as you do. And when I was about 13, 14, there were some weird things that would happen in my mum and dad's house, which is a former council house. So it's built just before I was born in 1965. And the weird thing is, in those days, no one talked about things in the house. So I ignored it. But it wasn't really until I was in my late 20s and I took over a pub in the centre of Bristol, one of the original medieval streets. And it was built around about 1770. The cellar was medieval. And boy, was it haunted.
Really? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, if that was obviously you obviously like ghost stories as a child, as you said. But then, so what did you experience at this pub then?
So for the first, I would say 6 months, I became a manager to the tenant because he owned a pub literally opposite the road. And it was weird. Once I'd locked up, because a typical townhouse, you had a cellar, you had a long bar, you had a function room, and then you had 2 floors, you know, a private flat. But it was, how can I put it? It was scary. You know, I remember the first time, I think it must have been at midnight, I had my old dog with me and I was watching the 1980 film, The Fog. And do you remember where the
good
ghost
film? Yeah.
on the door?
Yeah.
Well, I opened my bedroom door and something kicked my door. Now, I'm no fool. I did not open that door till the morning. I just put the quilt over my head. I had my keys. I'd let the cleaner in one morning, got back into bed because I had a slight hangover, because in the centre of Bristol, the nightlife when you're in your late 20s was exceptional, you know. So my pub keys got picked up and thrown against the wall, and I was getting used to it. And I just said, well, I'm not getting up, you know. And then you became used to leaving your door open. A customer would say, a lady in blacks walked into the gents. You go in there, nothing there. Marlene, the cook, who'd been there about 20 odd years, she would see flour come off one shelf and it wouldn't fall. It'd just sort of like be placed down. My husband now, he had experiences, though he doesn't believe in the paranormal. But once you got used to it, it was like having an invisible flatmate.
Yeah. And did you get used to, so you did get used to it then? It wasn't kind of, you didn't feel scared of it or anything like that. It was just kind of like,
not the end. You would say things like, put my coaster back, because your coaster had disappeared, where you always kept, you know, your cup in the flat. And little things like that. My dad became my cellarman. And if you went down into the cellar, you would be tripped up for no reason.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, but the funniest thing was myself and a load of our guests, we all went to Amsterdam. And when we came back, quite a few stayed the night in the pub, including my father. And in the morning, he said, never again. I said, why? He said, because the function room, there were clear, distinct footprints going back and forth. And there was no one there.
Fabulous. And that's a great start. I mean, obviously that kind of, that, you got that, or you already had the interest anyway. And I suppose just having that and living with that. So how did it go from there then? So how did it kind of develop from obviously having this pub in Bristol, which is really haunted? How did things kind of develop over time then for you?
So then I left the pub, and I'd met my other half, obviously. And then in 1997, I had my son, and started, I think it was about 3 or 4 years when Most Haunted started. So this was something like, wow. But I didn't know you could actually investigate, So I was just watching this program, and I was thinking, oh my God, maybe one day. And then go on about another 6 or 7 years, I heard a couple of, I think I was working part-time in Woolworths. I heard some people talking about a ghost hunt.
Yeah.
So then I joined, and at the time, I think there were only 3 ghost hunting companies. And I started doing that with a friend. And one of the ones we went on was a weekend at the Jamaica Inn and Bodmin. And the first time I stayed was room 5. And myself and my friend had footsteps walking around from one side of the bed to the other.
Right. And whoa. Because we're going to talk about Jamaica in a lot, right? A lot. Obviously, you kind of like, you just did a ghost hunt at Jamaica Inn, Bodmin Jail, obviously all around Cornwall area for those that don't realise. And then you've become obviously part of the Jamaica Inn Paranormal Team. And I mean, you are obviously at this coaching inn, and it's sorry, it is an old coaching inn, isn't it? Or is
yes,
it? Yeah.
Yes.
So you've been obviously linked with this coaching inn for a very, very long time now. You kind of like, you're always there, or seemingly always there.
Nearly 9 years now.
Yeah. And for those who didn't see it, Lorian talks about the Jamaica Inn as well from her point of view. But obviously, I think you are the undeniable expert of this place. So
obsessive nerd, I think.
What we need to do is you can kind of flood us with historical fact and detail, because you've said before in the past, I've heard you say there's a lot of nonsense spoken about the Jamaica Inn and what may or may not haunt that place, and other teams go in and out, and then they make up stories, and you're obviously wanting to keep things very much accurate to the property, to the actual building and things like that. So let's just put on here a little slideshow. So this, for those who don't realize, this is the Jamaica Inn. Okay, so first of all, what can you tell us? All you need to tell us about this place.
Well, the good thing about history is history can change as new facts emerge, and the honor of not only representing the Jamaica Inn in their public and private, but researching, and obviously historians have been involved. I am an amateur, but there's something amazing about a place that you can just study as an investigator, but also to try and collect information, because it all should belong to the public. It should be out there for everyone, because, oral history especially is lost. And there's so many older generations that if we don't take down the information now, it's so pertinent. And it happened to me. An old regular at the Jamaica Inn told me about secret military meetings that went on during the Second World War. But he passed away soon after, and I will never know.
Yeah.
But going back to the history, we now know, finally, that where the Jamaica Inn sits was just open moorland. There was an old Roman track that literally ran past to where you see the inn now. But it was nothing there before. And it's all thanks to one man, a sea captain called Captain John Broad, who had been made a widow with a 7-year-old and a 3-month-old baby. And like a lot of ex-mariners, had to come in and find, you know, a different way of life. And what interests me is when someone does that, as a sea captain, he would have made money, obviously, but not to what the costs would have been to what you see in front of you now. So though Bodmin Moor had nothing on it there, it was owned by different gentry. And there was 2 gentry that owned this particular land, a Thomas Wills and a James Scarwin. Now, James Scarwin's family were merchants, had connection to the West Indies, etc. And we think that perhaps Captain Broad may have known or worked for the Scarwins in some aspect. We can't prove it,
roughly what year is this? Sorry.
So this was just before 1776.
Okay.
So we know that an agreement was drawn up between him and a kinsman, a relation of his, to hedge in 20 acres of land. Now, weirdly, his kinsman, who did a tenancy with Thomas Wills, signed his complete agreement over to Captain Broad. So that's unusual straight away. So this man, this Captain Broad, was allowed to hedge in 20 acres of moorland. So moorland, if you've ever seen the moors, is tough terrain. And at his own expense, he had to turn this into pasture because he was building a farm. That was his intention. And he also, at his own expense, had to build a large dwelling with stabling and hayloft. So he never owned it, but the cost of actually building that. And then within 5 years, he'd also built a forge, barns, and became a tenant of a local fine clay works called the Dry Works, because Cornwall was famous for its porcelain.
We're talking a lot of money here then, aren't we?
A lot of money. I asked a farmer recently, I said, what would it cost to change moorland into pasture? He said, a lot of help and a lot of money. So this is a big undertaking. He also remarried a Frances Granville, who was a widow with grown-up children. But interestingly, her son-in-law was a customs man.
Oh, really?
So did smuggling go on there? If it did, was her son-in-law in Captain Broad's pocket? So many mysteries.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because for those that don't realise, Jamaica Inn's are famous for meant to be a smuggling inn, for smuggling goods and things like that away from, you know, the eyes of the authorities. I mean, like I was just going to say, how much truth is there to that? Is there any kind of any historical truth to that?
You can't prove it, unfortunately. It's built on solid granite, so there's no tunnels underneath the Jamaica Inn whatsoever. What you can say, interestingly, where would you hide counterfeit goods? And the most likely place is somewhere that the custom men wouldn't go. So either the home of the gentry or perhaps the local church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Think of the Daphne du Maurier Jamaica Inn.
Well, famously in the the Jamaica Inn Daphne du Maurier kind of novel, exactly. I mean, obviously, it's got a very kind of it's a very kind of romantic setting. You know, it's a very bleak, very kind of, I don't know, windswept place. It's a lovely building, but also, obviously, apart from the actual factual history about it, like you just said, it's supposedly very, very haunted.
Yes.
And I'm going to just change this screen to maybe some of the, or maybe actually just not. It might not be kind of his, haunted things, but maybe just interesting things that you might also know about the inside of the actual in itself.
So, as I said, it was built as a farm, and he built this as a legacy for his sons. A tenancy was signed with him, his 2 sons, and his stepson. Unfortunately, 1798, Captain Broad died. 1803, his oldest son died, and 1812, his youngest son died. So that was the end of the Broad legacy. But we really want to get the story out about this family, because if it wasn't for them, there would be no Jamaica Inn, no Daphne du Maurier visit. So, does he haunt it? Does his sons haunt it? That's a big question. And what you see there, that would have been a huge living room.
Wow, that's a big living room for the time. That's huge.
Exactly. And again, a working farm, so there would have been a lot of workers, because I think about 1812, when the wife of his youngest son sold up, because she took over the tenancy, they had lots of mules. What are mules used for? Taking goods, picking up goods from beaches, etc. Cattle, pigs, sheep. You know, it was a lot. So in 1828, when the last any connection to the Broad family finished, it had gone from 20 acres to 1,000, I think it was 550 acres or 550. I've gone up my head for the minute. But even if it was 550, that is a hell of a lot of land that's been picked up in those few short years.
Definitely.
In this dining room, or lounge as it was called, is an absolutely atmospheric place. Cornwall's very famous for the type of fireplace that it has. It's very open, because they would have burnt turf, because you don't get many trees on the moors. And being 950 feet above sea level, it constantly rains, and the wind, I mean, Saturday night, the wind was howling around it. And it just, when you're there in the warmth and the comfort and there's a fire going, it just, oh, it just tingles all over. That's all I can say. And I know Lorian's the same.
Yeah, she just said there, you know, she's just said there, my favorite fireplace ever, says Lorian. I mean, is that obviously this lounge area, is that haunted, or is it mainly the kind of the bedrooms that in Jamaica Inn they're meant to be haunted?
Every single place has a paranormal report, even the new build that was only 5 years old. So
really?
That place there, next to the fireplace, you'll see some benches. That's what we call Jack's place. So Jack supposedly is either sailor, smuggler. The old reports say sailor, so I think more likely sailor. Was lured out into the moor, killed, probably for coins, because the sailor has been on a long voyage. He's got a big bag of coin. He's on his way home. You're going to mug him for that, obviously. Now, this Jack, whatever you want to call him, it's so weird because he has a weird personality, and I'm a skeptical investigator. He's a prankster. He will grab your right buttock on command. Did it 4 times last year. In controlled conditions.
Just to you, Karin.
He never does it to me because he's obviously seen me naked. But he'll push pint glasses off. He'll push a jug off. One night we were there with guests, and above the bar there used to be pewter tankards, and one started swaying on its own. Just one. And we just sat there, and it carried on for a good 5 minutes.
Oh, wow. So it's just, I mean, that's not just been accidentally knocked by somebody, has it then, if it's just doing that for 5 minutes?
But the interesting thing is, the first documented paranormal report was way back in 1911 of a man sat on the outside wall, dressed in old-fashioned clothing. And when the locals tried to converse with him, he ignored them and disappeared. So that is a first sighting, goes way back to 1911. Then we have this massive gap. But I was lucky enough to interview a lady that was born there. Her father was the landlord in the 1950s. And the paranormal reports then were different to now. So, like a giant Philip experiment, do we make the ghosts and they become the ghosts, or do new ghosts come and go? That's how weird this place is.
As I say, obviously you've investigated this place. Do you get lots and lots of different names coming through, or do you get the same names coming through when when all visitors hearing a certain name or whatever it is?
Yeah, we get consistently a little boy called Thomas. We call him Tommy, and we think it may be. And I'm always careful about labeling because it's very easy to say, "Oh, it's this person, is that." How can we prove it? We can't. But what we can say is this is the most popular name associated with this little boy. And there's a great story of 1834, and this woman's my heroine. Her name is Mary Downing, and she actually sued the landlord there, Thomas Dunn, who was married, who had about 6 or 7 children, and whose wife gave birth the same year she did. So she took him to court to recognize their illegitimate child. And I've seen the baptism. He was put by the church on the baptism record. He was acknowledged as the father. Wow. And she sued him way back in 1834 to say, that is your son.
Good on her.
Yeah. Women's rights. Get in there.
Right. I've just obviously changed the screen now to this view. So what can you tell me about this particular view? This is going to bar. I take it it's the bar area rather than the lounge area.
This is the Mary's Bar. Now, lucky enough, I was given some official plans because in 1970 they drew up plans to do quite a lot of changes to the inn. So this bar used to be longer and it had a fireplace, and they also punched a hole in the wall. I mean, the walls are about 3.5, 4 feet thick in places. You know, they built these places to last in those days. You know, there was no messing about. This one as well, the staff would walk through from the main bar through here to the restaurant, and especially girls or, young women with ponytails in the last few years would get their ponytail pulled. But the best report I have from the 1950s was it was shut to the public. It was a private afternoon function, and a serving lady saw a man in a green cape walk past and walk out through the door that goes to reception that then was an exit door. And he wore a green cape.
Wow. I mean, all of these are just obviously combined with, just how many different kind of apparitions do you think Jamaica Inn has? If you was going to try and put a number on it.
I think it's really hard because I will never say it's the most haunted inn or we have 40 ghosts, etc. What we do seem to have are regular sightings of a big shadow man, a man with a tricorn, a girl, a boy, Gandalf, which is like a pilgrim with a hood. We call him Gandalf because that's what the workers said he looked like, Gandalf. The Victorian lady. And then in the last 7 years, a US airman. And it's like, well, where did that come from? And that was seen by a 16-year-old girl. I spoke to her mother. She saw him come out of the kitchen in full airman's uniform, go into the bar. But she said to her mum straight away, he made no sound on the flagstones.
Right. Okay.
But again, a lot of reports we keep quiet to see if we get consistently more. Yeah. Because what we don't want to do is influence people to think they've had an experience and perhaps they haven't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And obviously that very much kind of links into your kind of approach to the paranormal as well, in terms of being quite skeptical, which we'll talk about in a bit as well. I mean, obviously, this is a place where you can have a there are a number of rooms where you can stay over at the Jamaica Inn, and there's 3 that you've pointed out. Probably I don't know what people would regard as the 3 most haunted rooms. Would you say, in terms of out of all the rooms that you have?
There are 4 in what we call the old block. They're the famous haunted ones, but in the old block there are 10 bedrooms. Every bedroom has paranormal reports. And yet bedroom 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 didn't exist till 1971. Why is that? Why are they haunted?
It's interesting because it's like you say, prior to that, then obviously there had been what would have been there prior? Would it just was there even a building there prior to that?
Well, 8 and 9 there wasn't, but 10, 11, 12 there was no floor. And what fascinates me is, and there were a couple of investigators staying Saturday in room 12, and they had the tapping on the door as well. So if ghosts are real, does that mean that they see the Jamaica Inn in real time? How can a Victorian woman stand in room 23 that is only 5 years old?
Yeah,
And be
exactly.
seen?
And
That's
like,
fascinating.
but as well, the interesting thing that you said before is, like Cobalt Dragon here has literally just said, or is it maybe related to the land? But you said obviously prior to the Jamaica Inn being there was nothing on that land. It was just kind of moorland. There was, so in
Yeah.
terms of there shouldn't really be anything that kind of links anything to the land, you'd have thought.
But interestingly, the Roman track went past the village of Temple, that's about 5 miles away, which was founded by the Knights Templar. So is our Gandalf a pilgrim?
Nice. I get you thinking. Exactly.
What I will not say is a monk. It's not a monk. It's an older man with a beard who wears a long grey cloak, and it's always the hood on. And the latest sighting was February, room 34, a modern room. There's a couple that come down all the time. They don't do the paranormal, but they're regulars. And the wife woke up at 2 in the morning to see the hooded man, the Gandalf, leaning over, staring at her husband in bed asleep. And I said to her, she told me the story. I said, "What did you do?" She said, "I left him to it, went back to sleep."
Right, before we talk about the bedrooms, do you want to do some plugging? Because as you have this lovely poster that you've put on, that you've given to me on this one to show off to people, you best do some plugging, hadn't you?
Oh, that's really nice. So myself, the lovely Gemma, Craig, Lisa, and Rachel are the Jamaica Inn Paranormal Team. We're all equal, and we alternate to do public hire and private team hire. So as an investigator, I think everyone should be able to investigate there. But because it's a 36-bed hotel, the only way to do it to reduce the contamination is to take out all 10 bedrooms in the old block and to do it a sleepover event, especially people that do EVPs and things like that, because you don't want the public in your way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we absolutely love it. We do, and we all get on really well, the team.
Good. Yeah, I mean it's I always try to kind of retweet things from you guys from the paranormal team and things like that. So absolutely. Right.
Well,
Let's move on to these.
Sorry, Gemma is our
Yeah.
Twitter queen, because Gemma, Twitter to me is Chinese.
Gemma's never off it. Right then. Okay, so let's go through these. What's the main events that have happened in 3 of the rooms? We'll not go all 36.
Yeah.
But so room 3 then. Let's go for these. Start with this one.
So room 3 is my favorite. It's quite a large room. And years ago, when we used to do the paranormal, there used to be a lady. She sadly passed away from cancer last year. She used to be the housekeeper. And when she used to see us, she used to cuss at us, because she'd say, "Right, that's it, they're going to start." So what would happen, would do a paranormal night. The next morning, she would go into room 3, clean it all up, do the mirrors, and then she had to come back because she would find small fingerprints all over the mirrors again. And it made her really angry because she used to blame us because we wound them up, she used to say. So you have that. You have quite a few reports of a crying baby when there's no baby there, a woman that sobs. 2018, Rachel and Sabrina from Rope Paranormal. Sabrina woke up to see a boy at the end of the bed, about 11 or 12, with a flat cap and braces looking at her.
Wow, that's all in the same room. That's all in room 3. All of those things, and but very child centered. Then all these main these main things.
There's nothing horrible at the Jamaica Inn. There's a prankster. There's a grumpy landlord, maybe, but there are people just going about. And as I always say, we're the guests in their home. That's what we have to remember.
So let's have a look at room 4. This is room 4.
So this one, going back quite a few years ago, were reports of a horse on gravel, because obviously the cobbles didn't come up to the 1950s, and the sound of carriage coming into the courtyard. And then there was a solicitor and his wife. And when they looked out of the window, there was nothing there. What you can't see to the left is an alcove, and that was the first sightings of Gandalf.
Okay.
Stood there.
Yeah.
First time I slept in that room, I felt I was being watched. And where the lamp is, there's reports of the tricorn man watching those that sleep. We've also, there was a team years ago that left an EVP running, and they had a brilliant EVP of an old flintlock pistol being fired.
Wow. Okay.
Very, very distinct.
Because that's like I said, that's a very distinct sound, and not necessarily something you would expect to kind of hear.
Yeah.
I mean, I know obviously well, again, reputation is a smugglers in and things like that. You might think and pirates and goodness knows what else, that it's kind of imaginative to hear something like that. But for that to be recorded, that's amazing, really.
And where people get it wrong, that's room 4 that Daphne du Maurier stayed in when she came to the Jamaica Inn.
Fabulous, right? And then you've got 2 photos here of room 5, and let's have a little look at room 5 then.
So room 5 seems to be the favourite amongst a lot of people. I mean, years ago, there was this story of this Hannah, this little girl. There is no factual evidence she existed, but she's become part and parcel of the reports of the Jamaica Inn. There are definitely children. The tricorn man is supposed to walk past the bed, through the wardrobe, and what people didn't realise is the bathroom of room 5, the bathroom of room 6 were 2 extra bedrooms. So, was he just going about his business? Is it at a replay? Again, the footsteps around the bed. We had one chap about 5 years ago go down to reception, complain he took a photograph of children's wet footprints and accused the hotel of staging it when he was asleep.
That within the room?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. There's also been a report, and don't seem to have it now, of an housekeeper, an older woman with a mock cap. But when you're in bed, a lot of women get their legs stroked, not in a sexual way, but like a child trying to get attention. Yeah. One lady thought there was a dog on her legs when she was asleep. And what she didn't know, when I interviewed the lady that was born there in the 50s, her parents gave her that room as her bedroom. And the only way to get her to sleep at night was to put the pet Alsatian in the room with her. So he probably laid at the bottom of the bed, knowing most dogs.
So I mean, to me, all of the bedrooms look really inviting and lovely. Room 3, 4, I'd sleep in any of them. They look absolutely gorgeous. I mean, in terms of the people who sleep there, I mean, like you say as like a fairly nice atmosphere in terms of, you know, the paranormal encounters that people have had there. There's been nothing particularly scary, just unusual that you would say, or kind of childlike, you'd say, in lots of
Yeah.
circumstances.
But see, people expect things to happen every time they say. I've slept in that room lots of times, had nothing. Richard Felix, when he slept there, when Most Haunted were filming, there used to be an old-fashioned catch on the bathroom door. And he told me that it was being pressed down. Now, I had that as well. Before they, you know, they've changed the bathroom door now, unfortunately. But it's ongoing reports. That's what interests me. And there was a brilliant one of Rachel from Rope 2018 in the main bar. And of course, I was looking the wrong way. She happened to look and saw a man sat in the chair by the big table. He's like that. He's got his elbow on the table looking, you know, fluffy shirt, breeches, typical late 18th century clothing. And it's not that he was staring at her. She said it was the expression of half amusement, half, what the bleep bleep are you doing? And that same dark hair, beard, etc., has been seen by a woman 2016 just standing outside room 5. She went up the stairs to go left, and she thought it was someone dressed up.
No, we don't have folk. There's lots of people. There's quite a few like Lorian and Diane. A few people say talk about room 6, and we've got no photos of room 6. But I suppose for those that are interested, why is Lorian and Diane and a few people talk about room 6 quite a lot?
Well, the weird thing, I've slept in room 6, must be about 15 times. I've never had a thing. But our first report told me was a woman in the 1970s who someone was trying to get in the door. She's trying to wake her husband. Then this black shape came under the door and it raised up just as a blob. And she said to me that, think of Star Trek when they used to beam them up, all the coloured lights, and the room had gone ice cold. And she's trying to wake her husband, is coming closer to the bed. Then it stops, it goes back, and it goes back under the door. And she said, I've never slept in that room since. But Lorian had an experience. The most common is of a shadow figure of a male stood in the doorway watching those as they sleep. An old couple rang reception once because their bed and wardrobe was shaking, and they said they weren't doing anything. And then this year we had a private team hire, and they caught the bathroom door, and you can hear they shut. It was a click, and it just opened on its own. They managed to catch it. But again, it's down to belief. You know, I saw my first ghost there. I've seen little legs. I've seen the little boy. I can't prove any of it.
I mean, obviously you've kind of had lots of experience at the Jamaica Inn. I know we could talk Jamaica Inn literally until the full hour, but we said there was a few other things we had to try and talk about here, but we're kind of like going to get taken up with other stuff. Right. I'm going to link this in to your work as a producer and being part of this documentary called My Ghostly Footsteps. Ooh. For those that haven't seen, well, it's on as Amazon Prime. It's on currently
and Apple
still.
TV.
And would you want to talk about obviously your role in that, and also trying to get across your perspective and how you investigate?
So, thanks to the lovely Kev Kerr. Before I met him, I believed in dust orbs. I was very naive and everything was paranormal. And he completely shattered my bubble, my paranormal bubble.
He does that.
He does that to everyone, doesn't he? So, but I think naturally as years get on, you do get more skeptical, because I go to an investigation, I expect nothing. And if one little thing happens that has me scratching my head, I'm happy. You know, that I don't go looking for ghosts. If something, you know, I believe in using history and sound in clothing. That's my thing. But our lovely Kev has a way of shattering the dreams, bless him. But it's for your good, because it helps you then to realize that as an investigator and lucky enough to be associated with some wonderful properties, I think you have a responsibility. And for myself, the last few years, especially with being a founder member of the UK Paranormal Society and being associated, same with yourself, that it's not about us thinking we're better than anyone else, but we realize now that mainstream public associate us in a way that perhaps we don't want to be associated, such as, venues, respect, asking permission, not trespassing, etc. That sort of thing.
I think, obviously, just very briefly talk about UK Paranormal Society. Obviously, yourself got involved, way before I did, actually. I kind of joined on, obviously, but being a founding member of it as well, I just saw there was this huge gap that needed to be filled in terms of sorting out the ethics of the paranormal, because there were so many issues and everybody who's watching this kind of knows about it in terms of, like you say, kind of trespassing has become commonplace now, and urbexing is commonplace now. But also ethically, we've had people videoing recent children's gravestones, and or using, or being out there with a voice recorder trying to get the spirit of the child who's literally just died.
Yeah.
And you think, where, how far can this go? How low can we go? And that was for us.
So
what we're trying to try and sort that out.
Example are all churches, church graveyards, Church of England, other religious institutions. Now, when I went to a local church to do some research, I was chatting to the vicar. Soon as I said paranormal investigator, her eyes rolled. That taught me everything I needed to know of what they think of us. Until we can let everyone know, and perfect example, Jem does fantastic work. I spoke to a warden of a church in Cornwall. I'm not going to name it, but irresponsible teams, because it was left open, had gone in, used it for their lives, lit it all up, and yet not thinking of the consequences of those who worship there, who care for it. And when you've got a woman in their 70s crying on the phone to you because of the distress and the sacrilege they feel of ghost hunters going in and, in their eyes, making a mockery of their religion, their place of sanctuary. The church was open for those who needed to go in, whether you believe in God or not, but need to sit and contemplate. And that is the message we need to get across. I'm involved with certain aspects of concerning that, but even myself years ago, when I went to an abandoned church, I didn't realize certain things are wrong. And it's not about you're a bad person. It's about educating those to think of others' feelings and the consequences that doing what they do have. Going into what they thought is an abandoned house when the old lady is in a care home.
Yeah.
Putting their personal photos and things like that for all the public to see. If that was your grandmother, how would you feel?
Yeah, and it happens so regularly as well, and it's still happening, unfortunately.
Exactly. And then when you go on to heritage, when we book public ghost hunts, stuff like that, you have to sell the tickets. Totally fine with that. But changing history to suit the narrative you want to give is wrong. And don't get me wrong, because I advise the Warmley Clock Tower, and I cannot thank enough the ghost hunting companies, the private teams that over the years have hired this small venue, Georgian venue built by a Quaker in 43. And their hire now has paid for roof repairs, upkeep. They have a healthy bank balance. You know, that should be shouting from the top of the rooftops when we can do good. And now, if we can get those responsible people in other heritage sites and show them that you can get more of these as long as we have strict ethics and protocols in place that we all abide to. I'm
Exactly. I mean,
positive I've
and that's the thing
started.
is, obviously the lovely thing, you know, obviously we talk a lot of negativity, but the lovely thing is actually, you know, these paranormal events can have a big impact on these
Yeah,
small, very, very much so. I mean, some of these smaller charities, these small locations are, you know, absolutely desperate kind of and actually half of them don't even realize that it's a possible money spinner in some respects.
exactly. So when I was approached by Guy Gilbert, this BAFTA-winning producer, to do this documentary, having done, you know, ghost hunting TV, we know, I said I would be involved and only if it's as real as possible. And that's what he wants. He doesn't believe in ghosts. He's very, very skeptical, you know? So he was so nice to say, right. And I think I took over because being half German, I tend to boss people about, because I'm sure they'll agree in the
It's
comments.
not like you, Corinne.
No, not like me at all. And we secured lots of venues. Unfortunately, a lot of them didn't make the cut. And we got Richard Felix on board, and he did this fantastic documentary. But my greatest achievement was the honor of being put down as assistant producer. I'm 58, and I was like, wow.
That's a nice thing to put down on your CV, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, oh my God. And he said, you did all the work. But the footage you see at the nunnery, sorry, not the nunnery, George Jarvis School, is totally real. The emotion you see in myself and Rachel and Kimmer's eyes is real. No one was faking. No one was hiding behind the, you know, the wall tapping. And I've got the full footage, the hour and a half we filmed it, behind us for us, myself, Richard, Rachel and Kev, to dissect, to see, you know, even to go through it again with a fine-tooth comb. That was real. And that was lovely, you know. So it's something that's left a small footprint, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm
Yeah,
happy if I
exactly.
never do anything else again. You know, that was fine.
I've I've just changed this caption on the screen because I think by now people may want to start thinking of questions
Go
for
on.
you, Corinne.
Love that.
And so obviously we're kind of trying to we try to talk about heritage locations and the Paranormal Society and My Ghostly Footsteps and Jamaica Inn.
Oh, and
But
I also am
go
a
on.
paranormal consultant for Visit Somerset that have 800 properties. So places like Shepton Mallet, the old Vicarage Hotel, wonderful places that we're trying to help and to get more income for small little museums that no one's heard of, etc.
Oh, and plus you're also on the radio a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very naughty on BBC Radio Bristol.
Kev's asking questions about why heritage, but you know, should we just quietly ignore Kev?
Yes. He knows I'm passionate because heritage means history, and I can bore him to death with history.
Well, he wants to see this go way over an hour. That's what he's doing that for.
Oh.
Yeah, get your questions into Corinne, guys. Just start thinking of anything you could ask Corinne that we can try and fit in about 10 minutes.
Times has Justin got a word in edgeways. That's true.
Very, very, very few. Very few. I'm just. This is easy. This is easy. I could just let Corinne talk for an hour. It's brilliant.
Oh dear. Ask her about the tarmac.
Come on, then. What's this about the tarmac?
When I do the little history talk for the guests, they limit me to under 10 minutes. And I say things like the first tarmac road in England was outside the Jamaica Inn by McAdam because he was a local man. So they make fun of it now.
Let's have a little look. Go down here. What? I'm trying to just. I don't want to miss kind of people's kind of questions as they go through. But for some reason, it's really tricky to kind of go up and down on this thing. Right. What's this? What's Phil saying?
I think he means pasties.
Oh, pasties. I was going to say, is he still parties? It's like, what is on about?
No, but they
pasties from the kitchen.
They the new night porter heard a massive smash from the kitchen. He ran in. There was nothing out of place, and he'd only been on the job, I think, for about 3 or 4 nights. So there you go.
Yeah, one from Aidan. Hey, Aidan. I'm just going to click on here. There you go. Just heard that Karin's half German. Have you done many ghost hunts over there?
It's on my list. One place I really want to visit is in Czechoslovakia, so formerly Sudetenland. So after the war, my mum as a 17-year-old was put in a forced labour camp. And one of the places, the next big town, I can't pronounce the name, there was a huge castle and the Russians used it as a military hospital. And she was sent in with some other women to clean up all the bloody bandages and the syringes. And my aim is, even if I have just to walk through the building, that piece of history where my mum had to work or, you know, get killed.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of incredible history, really, isn't it? Tim's talking here about a pint glass that slid off a table.
Oh,
can you give us any detail?
Yes, we debunked it in the end. We did a test.
Oh.
But interestingly, there was no moisture to begin with. When we analysed it, Jane Mortimer, a few of us, one night after a public night had finished, we went through all these different scenarios and we did debunk it. We are on it.
Oh, they are, Tim.
Yeah.
It happens. Shit happens. Right. Okay, Mark, is there anywhere you haven't been in the UK that you'd love to go to, and why and when you do go, can I come with you, says Mark.
Well, there are some interesting ones coming up.
Come on, don't be cryptic. Or can you not say anything about it?
Well, there's some I can't say, but obviously being very lucky to have the ear of some heritage locations, we may find to be the first in some fantastic new places. Watch this space.
Brilliant stuff. Great. Phil's just asking this question. Wasn't there activity regarding a phone in the bar?
That is definitely real. Myself and Colin did a debunking video, and there's no way that it was a funny phone and it wouldn't rest on the catch. And on the video, April, you see it come away and then drop. And before that, April had said she heard it was a Sunday night. There was no one in the bar. She heard the bar door open wide, yet no one came in.
And we've got Lorian saying, what exciting news is coming up with the inn? Hint, hint, she says, like she already knows, but thinks we should all know as well.
Right. So with all the misinformation, there's a book that was printed many years ago called The Inn on the Moor. The first week of January, myself and Lorian and a few others will be spending 2 days and 2 nights at the Jamaica Inn. And Lorian's going to start to write the official Jamaica Inn book, which will contain everything. Drain my brain, drain Gemma, Craig's, everyone's brain.
How long has she got?
Well, we'll start it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, how many years has Lorian got in her, to be honest?
Well, again, it's ongoing. She'll probably have to do a part 2 and 3. But as she is such an amazing writer, I can't think of anyone better qualified to bring the Jamaica Inn's history and paranormal to life than Lorian.
Yeah, that sounds actually really good. And plus, like you say, you've always tried. I've know that you always try and get the truth of the matter through things, you know, the historical fact, and not the stories, and not the silliness and things like that. So that sounds like it'd be perfect, absolutely perfect for, you know, getting across not just the history of the Jamaica Inn, but also you're going to do the paranormal history of the Jamaica Inn as well as all of that.
Yeah, but also lots of little funny stories. You know, the pet pig that used to wander the bar in the 1950s, and the ghosts then. They only had a few rooms that, you know, were guest rooms, but they would come down in the morning and say to the lady's mother that, who's been in my room and folded my clothes up and left them tidily on the end of the bed? What happened to that ghost? Because I wanted to take her home.
All right, I've only got, let's say, the last couple of, we're nearly at the hour. We're doing well, actually. I think we've tried to kind of squeeze in as much as we can. I think we're, like I said, I think we're doing well. Oh, thank you, Cobalt Dragon, for putting this one. Great to have folks talking and spreading the truth. It's always what we try. It is what we try to do. I mean, you've always, like I say, just very briefly, you always try to have tried to get things very kind of truthfully, you know, and honestly when you investigate. You know, you don't. I mean, how much do you go for things? You know, I don't think you go for that many in terms of gadgets and things like that. And
no, thanks to Kev, a lot of my flashy lights now are redundant. But I love things like we've done twice now at Woodchester. We've done the Singapore theory, dressing up in period costume. The first one was Georgian right through to the Second World War. Kev looked amazing in his Second World uniform. And then this year we did it just based on the Second World War. And that was so interesting.
Just out of interest, because I know you've done that quite a few times, and it's something that kind of fascinates me, because I've been to like a couple of places and thought, well, maybe this would be a good place to kind of, in a weirdly, see if I dressed up, then maybe something happened. When you've done that, have you tended to get more activity? Has it actually had an effect, do you think?
I think it's what it tends to do. It sort of has you scratching your head. Now, we were at a former fortified manor house on just a social weekend away. And on the Saturday night, I put on my Victorian dress, and I was in a bedroom, sat next to Sabrina on a single bed that was part of a former chapel. And we both felt as if something had come through the door. And I mean, I'm not psychic. And then, so, you know, when you jump up and sit down heavily on a bed, that happened. I did my biggest Scooby-Doo I've done in years. Kev was crying in the other room, but you could hear it. The bed creaked, and yet we put the light on, nothing there. Now, I reckon it's because I wore a Victorian dress.
Yeah. You think it's all linked? I mean, it kind of does make sense, you know. Diane saying, "I know this is as flashy as I get. I don't do flashy. I don't do flashy gadgets. This is as flashy as I'll ever get, to be honest. They're just Christmas lights. It's nothing to do with paranormal."
Yeah.
Right then, okay, I think we are just about going to leave it there. I know we could talk, and I know we could actually talk for a good couple of hours more. I've got to say, easily, but I think we'd bore everybody senseless. So anyway, I'm just gonna thank everybody for joining us. Thank you guys. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your inane chat, your live chat. Some of you are just absolutely weird. Anyway, but mainly, thank you to Karin for you know, just being so entertaining, and your knowledge of Jamaica Inn as well is just outstanding. And as ever, been an absolute delight, genuine delight. So thank you so much for coming on. It's an honor to
be on you. Thank you so much for asking me.
Before we leave, do you want to plug anything you want to plug? Go for it before we finish.
Oh, crikey. So Jamaica Inn, if no one's ever been, it is an amazing place. Can't guarantee anything paranormal will happen, we're very honest. Any paranormal teams, we do private hire. If you're interested, please email me on ghosthunts@jamaicainn.co.uk. And again, UK Paranormal Society, proud to be associated with that. Same as with Justin and a few of the others, Rachel Haywood, etc., Jane Mortimer, Leanne, oh God.
Like an Oscars speech, this, Corinne.
I'm so lucky. But the best thing of all is the way I was chatting to a reporter earlier today, and to me, the Jamaica Inn has opened up so many doors, so many wonderful avenues for someone who went to a very rough school, didn't have a very good education, and now I give back. And I think it's so important to give back and to help others and to do things with no agenda. And that is my mantra now. I interfere with everyone. Yes, I do. And I offer my help whether you want it or not. But, you know, it's a old granny sort of thing, isn't it?
I wouldn't say that. Right. We'll leave it there. Again, thank you so much. And thank you guys for joining us. Next week, I don't have any guests next week. I don't know. Maybe I'll just come in and just chat to people on, to you guys. Like, won't be like a proper podcast with guests. It'll just be chatting to you. So if you just fancy just me name Christmas chat about ghosts, that's what I'll probably do. Probably won't do it for an hour either. But yeah, I'd love to be doing that. And then the guests start up again back in January, starting with, I think the first guys that got in are the Haunted Magazine guys. I think that's the beginning of January. All right. Okay. So I shall see you next week. Bye, guys.